Would you take this scenario right now for the Broncos for this year, Ryan? 9-8 record. First time you're already shaking your head.
I thought about this a lot. I read the tweet
but
last
no
night.
playoffs.
And I almost responded, but I honestly just felt like I needed to give it more deep thought before I responded.
You need more
hastily.
deep thought?
And I did. And I can only come to one fair conclusion, which is a little bit on the fence.
Okay.
As a podcaster, strictly as a podcaster, I'll take it. Give me nine winners lounges.
Yeah.
And, mostly good feelings about the Broncos. That would make our job a lot more fun. And to guarantee it would be nice.
Yeah.
As a fan of the Denver Broncos, I just simply can't accept it. It's the worst thing that can happen in a vacuum in one season. Now, they have to start winning at some point, right?
Yeah.
So we can't keep doing this just tank or make the playoffs thing. Because at some point you have to start winning. But in a vacuum, the worst thing you can do is have a winning record and miss the playoffs.
I agree.
So as a fan, I have to say no. But from this seat, it would be nice.
This and your answer, Ryan, is just spot on with the way that fans felt. Over 200 responses to this on Twitter, and the overwhelming majority of them were, hell no.
Yeah.
We're not taking that right away. And honestly, those answers shocked me. Probably shouldn't have, but they also just made me so scared about where the expectations are for this team already. I thought at this point, people had kind of learned their lesson. Like, oh, the Broncos are just going to suck until they don't. And kind of had that expectation. I like that that's not Broncos fans' expectations going into this season. But it scares me. 9-8, because one of the things you said, in a vacuum, 9-8 is the worst thing you can do. And I completely agree with that. But take a step back. And the first season with Sean Payton, you get 4 more wins.
Yeah.
The hope and legitimate opportunity that the Broncos would have going into next year, you're thinking, if they take another 4-win jump, they're going to be 13 wins. But you say, okay, let's just cut that in half. 2-win jump next year. 11 wins. Then they're in the playoffs finally. Then you're talking about back-to-back winning seasons.
Yeah, exactly. Broncos fans just don't operate that way.
Yeah.
And I kind of get it. I kind of don't. But in the end, 9-8, as much as anyone can say right now, that's not what they want. People would have good feelings about the team for the first time in a while.
It's true.
And the whole offseason would be exciting.
Yeah.
You think so? I don't think I could get to that point. Because the thing, like, they already made all their moves, though, is the thing. Like, they aren't spending big in free agency next year. Like, I guess they'll have their draft pick, but I don't know. You need more this year for this era to work, I think.
Really?
I do. Yeah.
I think
Otherwise,
you're going to have a bad time.
Oh, definitely. Like, they're in a
I'm
tough
worried
spot.
about people.
Because, like, if Russ gets you 9-8 this year, he's going to come back another year older with basically the same team. I don't think you're ever competing for a title while he's here.
So do you think this team is going to be clicking just as much as they ever will this year, even though it's Sean Payton's first year? Because I do believe in the first year should have a major boost, but I still think that there's going to be a lot of growth, specifically with the offense in the second year under Sean Payton.
I don't think it's significant. So they'll be better. Maybe you pick up another win because of it, but again, you're still talking 10, 11 wins, and that's
what I was going to say.
That's your peak.
Do you view this as the Broncos' best chance to win a Super Bowl is this year?
No.
Yeah,
no
way.
So then
definitely not.
anything moving towards that would be a positive thing.
No, because the thing is, like, I think if you get 9 wins out of Russ this year, I don't think you look at that and say we can be a Super Bowl contender with Russ as our quarterback. Like, I think you look at like the 3 years he has left, and I don't think you can go from 9 wins this year to Super Bowl champions in that time.
Let's say he throws 23 touchdowns, 10 picks this year, and they go 9-8.
Then there's still like flaws with the team, and there's the
But
thing
aren't
is
you saying like, okay, one more year in the system, we could get him up to 27-10?
But I'd still look at the 9 wins and say, well, what does that get you? That gets you another win or two? Because again, like you can't add to this roster next year is the thing. Like if Russ is like the 12th best quarterback, then you're not winning a Super Bowl with him because you already have all the pieces if you're winning 9 games, you know?
I mean,
you can't add to the offensive line, you can't add to the receivers, you can't really add to the defense.
To me, it's like you just try to build a more complete team the next year. add a couple pieces
Yeah.
in the draft. You maybe
finally have draft picks.
right, exactly. You fine tune the defense a little bit. Whatever it may be. I do think, regardless of whether you can win a Super Bowl or not, I do think if you went 9-8 this year, and I totally understand why everyone will decline that right now, and why I would too. If you went 9-8, people would say that's big time progress. There's something to build on. Next year they'll be better.
Yeah.
I can't wait.
Yeah, and I'm right there with you. I think there will be a lot of excitement going into next year. Do you think the answer would have changed if we would have just said 9-8 and not said anything about guaranteeing making the playoffs or missing the playoffs?
Definitely.
Maybe.
Definitely. Because as soon as you say no playoffs, it just feels like a lost season.
And I'm
Yeah.
just blown away again by the comments section right now. I mean, saying the Broncos need a playoff win. If you're 9-8, they're moving on from Russell Wilson. I think if the Broncos are 9-8 back-to-back years, then I could see after. Then Sean really feels like he got the most out of Russ, and it's clearly not enough. But I think a 4-game jump. Russ clearly played significantly better. Obviously not MVP level, but he played much better. I think they get one more year with him. And as we talked about yesterday, that would mean 2 more years with Russ. But I just don't think that. I think 9-8, taking a step back, forgetting the 2, 3, 4 decades worth of Super Bowl or bust that was the Broncos mindset. That's changed so much right now. I'm guaranteeing the first winning season since 2016, and I get why people wouldn't want it. But what I'm shocked at is people just absolutely being disgusted that that's even mentioned.
Yeah, and someone said you sound like a Browns fan. The Browns have probably won more games in these last few years than the Broncos.
That'd be
Damn,
close.
that's
But
sad,
yeah.
especially a team who had the number 1 overall pick.
Yeah, exactly. I could be off there, but it would be close.
I figured out how to say what I was thinking. If you go 9-8 and miss the playoffs, then you're not on pace to win a Super Bowl with Russ here. If you go 10, then you can say like, okay, 10 wins. Then you can find like the couple. Like you're
What's
not
the
on
difference
pace.
between 1 win though? Like, why is there that big of a difference?
You go to the playoffs, you get playoff experience. Like you do all those different things. Like it might not feel like a lot now, but going through the difference between 10-7 and 9-8, you feel it. You would feel that. I'm confident. Like that's you're above 500.
It could be like the
that's
difference
3
between,
games
like,
above.
A field goal that hit off the post or an
Oh, yeah.
onside kick that got recovered.
Yeah.
Definitely. But it's
Yeah.
also the difference between, hey, there's 2 weeks left in the season and we feel like we have a really good chance of the playoffs, and oh shit, we better win 2 games, otherwise we're in trouble. And those vibes are very, very, very different.
And sure, I mean, there are nuances to how you can get there and things like that.
Man, there's some crazy. Like you traded 2 top 10 draft picks to go 9-8.
Yeah.
I mean, we already know that one of them was a failure.
Yeah.
So you're just trying to recover that asset at this point.
Yeah.
So yeah, you did trade another one to try and help recover that. If you double your win total,
Yes.
you're feeling good. I just know for a fact that with a 9-win season, Broncos fans will be on a positive
agree.
vibe trend.
Yeah. And that's the thing. Like, that's what I said yesterday is like, I say all this now, but then next year we'll be like, well, maybe they will get better. Like, maybe there is more to grow within the system, that sort of thing.
Again, from a 30,000-foot view, it's really easy to talk about Super Bowls.
Right.
Right now, this team has been ass for 6 years.
Yeah. But that doesn't mean now it's like, well, let's just find a way to build a playoff team.
Yes,
Like, it just doesn't,
yes,
it doesn't work that way. It
Yes,
doesn't work that way. That's how you get stuck with Kirk. That's how you
got-
get stuck with Kirk Cousins for 5 years and you just go nowhere. Like, congrats on doing it,
mean,
but you got nothing.
But they've been to the playoffs.
That's nothing.
The Vikings have never won a Super Bowl, so I'm sure the Vikings
Exactly.
standards are lower than that. But the Kansas City Chiefs, they did not go from the number 1 overall pick where they drafted Patrick Mahomes to then winning the Super Bowl in the next year. They built and they built with Alex Smith and they got the most out of him. I'm not saying Russell Wilson is going to win a Super Bowl with the Broncos, but
No.
if they're able to do that, maybe it's not with Russ winning a Super Bowl, but they're able to squeeze the most out of him and build a winning culture. And 9-8 would be a winning culture for this year. Get to 10 wins, and then Sean says, okay, I've squeezed the most out of Russ. Now we're going to move on from
Trade
him.
up.
Exactly, because now they're going to have first-round picks where they can do that. That is... that's a step in the right direction. You're not just going to go from 5 wins to Super Bowl in a year. You're going to have to build. And 4-win jump is a massive build in a year.
But it's not a big enough build because again, because the thing about Patrick Mahomes is you didn't know what his ceiling is. Like I think for us to be saying after this season, hey, I think like Sean Payton actually has a real shot to be Super Bowl competitive with this team as it's built. They need to go to the playoffs. If they go to the playoffs, everybody after the season is going to be saying, look at where they are right now. They're only a step away. 9-8 though, that's above that or below that line to me where you say they just don't have the juice. Like Russ is going to have to go before this happens. Probably this is what you say.
I realistically think that where the Broncos are right now, there's 3 steps they need to take. Winning record this year, playoffs 2024, and then you can be competing for a Super Bowl. I guess think it's more than a 1-year jump for them. I think it's kind of that 3-year jump. And also that kind of goes along with where Sean Payton's contract is. I mean, he's not gone after 2 years, so I think this can be realistic steps in the right direction.
And the reason I think that can't be realistic is because 4 steps, Russ is 39 for that Super Bowl. That's just
How old was
unrealistic
Peyton
to me.
Manning when he won a Super Bowl?
That's Peyton Manning.
38. How old was John?
Yep.
I mean, Russell Wilson before last year had the most wins, I believe, outside of Peyton Manning of anyone in his we're talking about a guy who probably still is right now on a Hall of Fame path. So yes, Peyton Manning's better than Russell Wilson, but we're still talking about Hall of Fame quarterback. John Elway won a Super Bowl at 38. How old was Tom Brady? Won multiple in 40s. There is a trend where older quarterbacks can win.
Russell Wilson is not any of those guys though.
When the Broncos traded for him, they thought they were getting one, and we're obviously one awful year in between that, but it still is 1 year out of 11.
Yep, exactly. The disappointing thing about the comments to me is that I'm seeing that Broncos fans, not all, but a lot, can't enjoy process. And
true.
I just want to let everyone know, if you weren't a Nuggets fan, the most rewarding part of this championship was the process. The fact that they built it. I mean, this took 8 years. Now, this Broncos team doesn't have 8 years. If we had a rookie quarterback and another great rookie alongside him, and we were like, look, this is a process to build up to being great, that would be a different thing. But process is a part of the thing. Someone said, 4 wins, whoop-de-doo, what are we going to do with that? You have to start somewhere. You have to take steps in the right direction before you can get there. The Nuggets' whole thing was we don't skip steps, and they really did. They just went one step up. Like, they missed the playoffs in the last game of the season. The next year they made it. So like there are steps to this, and when you look back, I think the difference here is that people just don't want to accept the process now. When you look back at the end of the process, it's cool and exciting. How about the Peyton Manning process? There was a process there.
Yeah.
It ended with John Elway saying, okay, the number 1 offense can't win me a Super Bowl. So it took 2 years to then build the number 1 defense to go alongside Peyton Manning. These little moves and little counterpoints and all the stuff that you have to do in fine-tuning the roster is what makes it fun. It's part of the excitement. So 9 wins this year, I get it. You turn it down now. You really do.
Yep.
Because if you're saying we're going to miss the playoffs, it's just not a deal that I'm willing to accept. I'd rather miss the playoffs and be worse. But if they were to win 9 wins this year, people would say, okay, that is a step in the process. Give me a couple tweaks. Maybe you need an edge rusher. Can you go find one of those? Is it your draft pick? Whatever it may be, then you can continue those steps, and that is how you get to the end. The Broncos aren't winning a Super Bowl this year unless something crazy happens. We'd all love to see it.
Yep.
They have to take a step. Would you prefer 10 wins in the playoffs? Of course.
Right. Then you're
9
on
wins
pace.
and not, it's still a step.
The difference with the Nuggets, though, is that they were a young team. Like, the Broncos are one of the 10 oldest teams in the NFL. Like, they're just in a totally different place. So you can't just say, like, hey, just wait. Our time's coming. Our time's coming.
But in the next, obviously it's all dependent. It's all dependent on Russell Wilson. But in the next 2 years, who do you look at on the Broncos and say, man, that guy really isn't going to have it in 2 years now? Kareem Jackson? Who else? I mean, when you say an old team, yes, this team isn't. They're not the Nuggets. They're not going to be winning with this group in 8 years. But in football, it is a much shorter time window. I mean, you're not going to have Kareem Jackson in 2 years playing at the level he's at. Mike McGlinchey's not young, but in 2 years, you absolutely still expect him to be at the level he's at. I mean, I just look around. There's no guys, again, outside of Russell Wilson that I say, shoot, he's going to be over the hump at that point.
But the difference is the Nuggets were getting better. Like, we know what McGlinchey is. We know what Cortland Sutton is. We know what Tim Patrick is. Like, we know what all those guys are. Whereas with the Nuggets, it was, hey, we were just able to win 44 games, and these guys are still all 4 or 5 years away from their prime. With the Broncos, here they are.
It's not a one-to-one comparison. The point is you have to go from bad to good at some point. Mm-hmm. You can't do it overnight.
I agree with that.
The Broncos have a much smaller window to do so. But the way that everyone's talking right now, the Broncos might as well just blow it up now.
Right.
Well, see, the thing is, you've got 3 or 4 years with Russell Wilson.
Yes.
And so that's the pace that you have to be on.
So at some
you
point,
have 3 or 4 years to get to the top.
At some point, you're going to have to microwave one of the processes, right? You're going to have to make a big jump at some point. Going from 5 to 10 wins this year would be the one, right? That's like, okay, now you made the big jump. Now you're on pace.
Yep.
Yes. If you go 9 this year, it doesn't mean all of a sudden you're just blow it up, forget about it.
Yeah.
It's okay. Now next year we have to figure out a way. How do we make a little bit bigger jump? How do we go from 9 to 12, 9 to 11? And if you don't do it that year, let's say you just go from 9 to 10. Then the next year saying, okay, well, this is the year we have to go from 10 to Super Bowl contender. What can we do? Like at some point you are going to have to make a bigger jump because you have a smaller window, but it doesn't have to be this year.
I think 30 and maybe even 32 teams, but I think 30 of 32 teams in the NFL this year would take a 4-win jump from where they were last year. Obviously, it's not possible for a couple of teams, but like, yeah, who was the worst team? The Cardinals, they win 3 games or something.
The Bears were the worst.
Yep.
Yeah, you're right. The Bears, they would probably take a 4-win jump, and maybe that's one of the 2 teams that wouldn't actually take that, but I still think they would take a 4-win jump. I think people, when they initially see this, don't understand how big 4-game jump is.